Yeah, so forgive me that these slides are not consistent with the UC OSPO Network branding. I made them last night.
You're good.
But it's vaguely UC political. So yeah, Stephanie just approached me yesterday, and well, Laura approached me and said, you know, maybe you could say a few words about what's the deal with this survey that we've been kind of promoting this whole conference. So I just have a few slides about, you know, what we're doing here. What is this survey about? So essentially, we kind of hello.
Wow, last one was
Hello. Okay. So essentially, we're doing this for two reasons. An abbreviated list of reasons. Priorities and diligence. So there's kind of a priorities section of the survey and a diligence section. It's mostly about priorities, asking open source contributors what they would like out of an OSPO, what are the top challenges they've encountered and how frequently they've encountered them, what are the solutions that would be most useful to them. And so obviously that's going to be really helpful for the network to figure out where we should place our energies. The diligence piece is, this is actually a term that I learned from Heather Meeker as an alternative to the term compliance. I really like that. So yeah, we're just doing diligence to understand, you know, the landscape of open source at UC. So part of the survey is asking if you're comfortable, could you give us your GitHub username or GitLab or Bitbucket or whatever you use. And so we're going to be taking these usernames and looking at the repositories these folks have contributed to. We're not going to be like publishing any usernames, just publishing sort of in aggregate. You know, where are UC open source contributors contributing? Are they contributing back to big famous projects, or are they just doing their own thing? What sorts of licenses are they using, if any? Do they have a contributing file? Do they have a code of conduct? Do they have a README? All these kinds of basic things. We just want to understand what people are up to. So those are kind of the two elements of the survey that you'll see if you take the survey. So this is one of two projects that really fit together. The other project is a scrape of didn't know her face was going to be projected. So this Juanita's project is scraping repo data from GitHub and predicting, you know, is this person affiliated with UC? And again, those same sorts of characteristics of the repository that I just mentioned, but she's doing this on a much, much larger scale than I am, using machine learning. So, you know, I like to think that these are kind of complementary, that my project will be sort of the more like validated, manually inspected data. We're also getting quotes and voices and this kind of qualitative aspect of the survey. And then Juanita's going to use the survey data to inform her machine learning pipeline and sort of scale up this work. And so that was a limited list of sort of the advantages of the survey and the two projects. This is a limited list of some of the outcomes that we hope will come from this. So we do, you know, Juanita and I are going to publish papers about this, and we're going to publish our data sets. I'm happy to talk more about the shape of those data sets if you'd like. We haven't mentioned this yet, and I'm worried that it's like a secret. I hope it's not a secret, but we are working on creating basically a UC software catalog. So these usernames will help us. We have a box on the survey that people can check that's like, please contact me about showcasing my work in the software catalog, so that we can actually reach out to these folks and say, you know, would you like us to help promote your project? So that's another outcome. We really want this survey to be reused by us every, you know, maybe annually. We also want other universities to be able to reuse it, or other organizations. So we're going to make the survey instrument available. We want to make the code available and reusable. And of course, the outcome we really want is data-driven OSPO services that people are really excited about, that they're going to find useful. And again, like I was saying, these relationships between the OSPOs and the contributors, reaching out to them one-on-one, talking about, your getting your work on the repository browser, but then also, once we have those relationships, how we can connect these contributors to each other and build community. So there's a QR code to take the survey. Share it with your friends. It closes on May 2nd. And please reach out to me if you would like to know more or you would like access to some of these materials that we'll be publishing. I'm happy to share what I can. And that's all I have to say. Big thanks to all the folks. Again, this is an incomplete list of all the folks who've helped out. I'm sure there are people here I'm missing, but yeah, in particular thanks to the Sloan Foundation, and thank you for listening and for your participation, and happy to take questions if there's time.
I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about survey fatigue and how what tips you have, or honestly, actually, how do we navigate the biases of people who create and maintain open source software are usually, they at least feel very busy and will often scroll past a survey. So the data will be biased as always, but I'm curious to know how you're thinking about that.
I guess I have faith that open source contributors are very tired, but they also really care. And they are the kind of people who will make time for the things they care about.
I just want to say for all the UCSC folks in here who haven't done the survey, we are behind UCLA right now in numbers. I promised stickers and T-shirts to those who would win, so please put yours in. But seriously, for those who are UCSC, if you haven't seen this before, or any of the UC, sorry, anybody, not just that makes me look good. Those codes are here, and it includes any folks in the room who are not, so the UCSF folks who I've been talking to, please feel free to fill them out if you haven't already. It's great because you could also, having that as a data point of like the UCs that aren't in the network is also really useful for us.
We have, but if you could share those stats that we could then use to, we're falling behind. I love that. It's a great tool. So we use it all the time.
Okay, cool. All right, no, who is it? Amber's got all the numbers.
Yeah, I can pull up the leaderboard for you. I have to say that Santa Barbara has recently overtaken LA. So, oh gosh. I was going to respond to the survey fatigue piece. We were very conscientious about that when we were working on the survey in terms of keeping the time commitment quite reduced and designing thoughtful questions to try and reduce that. From survey practices, another thing you can do is actually, after you've had a communication around the survey, looking at your kind of influx of responses and then compare those against later ones, and so kind of to see whether you have any bias, because early responders are often those people that have like something really good to say or something really negative to say, and then the other people are the people that have been nudged to do it, and so you can test for those kinds of biases. And I was going to follow up with Stephanie as well and put a plug in. We have leveraged the email lists and the networks that we have on campus, but there are bound to be others. And so it would be fantastic if you could not only tell your friends, but also kind of post to lists that, we may have not been able to hit thus far. You can go back and you say, I just spent 2 days at this amazing meeting and they're doing all this great work. And it would be really helpful if everyone on this list can respond to this survey, and, maybe that'll nudge people to do it as well.
And it won't be like the surveys you get in your email from like companies where like you put in your rating and then you never hear anything again. Like, we're going to tell you about the data.
I just wanted to add something about what Amber was saying, and I think that we're hoping that the survey is kind of draws people in because it's going to be like mutually beneficial. Like, it's like kind of, you give me your data, but we are hoping that the survey is like more about asking people what they need and how we can help them, and that like we're hoping that will like make them answer our survey, right? Because it's like we're literally asking you, how can we help you, and how can we use your data to make your work easier. So I think that's sort of how we're trying to phrase the survey.
We also did a survey pre-test, kind of going back to the survey fatigue, where we did like a little pilot with people who are not from UC, and I got their feedback on like, did it feel too long, did it feel confusing? So we're really trying to make this a high quality instrument that will give us high quality data.
Well, thank you very much, Virginia. Let's see, so Fisher gave me 3 instructions, and we're going to see if I can remember the 3 instructions. The first one was escape, yeah, and then the next tab, and then slideshow. Did I do it? All right. Good. Okay, so welcome to, oh, it's the wrong date. It's the wrong date. It's not June, because one of them yesterday said June, so this is only off by one day. So that's pretty good. Anyway, so thank you for coming. I was kind of worried that not very many people would come to this very last session, to be honest, so I'm really thrilled that you all are here. Because in a more conversational way than the survey, in a complementary way, not replacement, this does not replace the survey, but in a complementary way, we would love to have a discussion about how the OSPO can support your work and what kinds of areas you would see the most benefit from. And so I've got some ideas on the next slide for some areas that you might be interested in getting help from us from. But these are just conversation starters, and if your conversations go in different directions, that's completely fine. So what we're going to do is form groups of 3 to 5 people to chat about the next slide that I will click to in a sec. And if you could choose a person to share your ideas back with the room as a whole afterwards, we'll talk for about, we done 10 to 4? Yeah. Okay. So maybe like 15 or 20 minutes talk or chatting, and then we'll come back and find out what kind of everybody thinks. Yeah? Okay? Okay, because nobody wants to hear me talk for the next hour. So, yeah, and then if you want to, you can stay in this room. You can move the chairs because they do not need to be in these rows anymore. So you can move the chairs, you can form them into circles, you can sit at tables. If you want to sit at a table, and all of the tables in this room are taken, there are also tables in that room. And you can take a picture of the questions that will be on the next slide, because there's no projector in there. Is there? Yeah. Really? Oh, that's awesome. You don't even have to take a picture. You can just go straight in, and that's even better. Okay. So. Okay, so grab a few people, and here are some ideas of some areas that we might be able to help you with, and you can feel free to add to this list. Any questions? Okay, go. Try it. 3 to 5 people. Go.
Started and providing tools that can make it easy to get started with their own projects, like repository templates. Somebody mentioned another group is already working on. OSPO could potentially provide templates as well, or curate and share others that have been created. The second area is kind of like increasing competency or leveling up in open source. And so one of the biggest things people were interested in was something like a peer review network for open source projects. So there are networks like this that exist, potentially to partner with or potentially build our own UC one, where people can do code reviews and peer review of open source and really get that feedback that's kind of often lacking with open source contribution. Another big one that people were interested in is curating and cataloging existing resources and trainings. There's a lot of stuff that's out there. There's a lot of trainings available, but getting some cataloging of them. Other ideas were office hours and drop-in sessions. People could just ask questions, and providing tools for open source software like helping code hygiene. Finally, sustainability is a big one. A lot of people that are on projects are concerned about sustaining them over time, so would want to see the OSPO advocate for incentives for open source work and promotion and tenure, something we heard earlier in sessions about how important that is to get credit for that work. Helping bring UC units together to work on open source projects that that don't even know each other, and could find ways to support each other across UC. And then events like this to meet industry partners and other UCs to really find ways to collaborate. Like this event and doing more like this. Great, thank you. That was incredibly thorough. Oh, hi. Oh, okay.
No, we had two students with us, and they're from UCSC, and they had to leave to catch the bus back to Santa Cruz. So we did talk, and what we said is that they would like to see more of a reach out to like the STEM and computer clubs on campus as a way of getting the word out about the OSPOs. They would like to see maybe doing workshops with these groups. So like workshops on how to pull, how to set up a GitHub, but also workshops maybe where we work with people in the K to 12, like kind of as they would be examples of like, hey, we're in STEM, let's reach out to you. Let's do kind of like maybe, coding, like really easy coding. And they're interested in also getting, some credit for that, like, being able to put that on their resumes or in their record. So yeah, we talked about the training. They talked about a newsletter. We had that. We talked about there. We also talked about the need for advocacy for researchers. So researchers, we've talked about this during this whole conference. They don't get credit or they don't get points for participating in open source. So that's something that we as OSPOs maybe should be advocating, within the university. Let's see, what else? There's one more thing here. Creating, and this was Virginia's idea, and it's a great idea, I think, is creating kind of meetups on campus or groups on campus that really talk about, like, open source. Do you want to talk a little bit more about it? Or? Yep. Very quick.
Laura and I are hatching a harebrained scheme to create a series of maintainers meetups at UC campuses, and some of them that are hybrid between campuses, or virtual between campuses, to build a community for maintainers.
Right, thank you, Virginia and Carla, and who's it?
I just didn't know I was going to be put on the spot. So I guess for us, we were very much focused on like the educational efforts, so engaging undergrads as well in open source projects and kind of onboarding them into the flow of it, like getting accustomed to like peer reviews, like pull request management and things along those lines. Just because there is so much information out there, it's very hard to kind of aggregate everything together into a really presentable way for undergrads, especially, if they're just coming into computer science for the first time and they have just no way of knowing everything.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Okay, wait, is this a separate group? Or? Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep. Wait, you guys all look familiar.
Yes.
We also talked a little bit about like education, and we were talking about how there's like so many resources out there for like onboarding contributors and like all of these things, and we wouldn't want to like reinvent the wheel on like writing these things like again, but more like creating a way to navigate these resources depending on what part of the process you are. So Emily came with the idea of like a flow chart that says like, are you a new contributor? Then start here. Are you, I don't know, a maintainer and you're looking for improving your workflows? Then start here. And something like that would be more of a guided way to sort of navigate through the resources that are already out there, and not actually creating new ones, because there's a lot. And then the other thing that we were talking about was also like the incentives for actually contributing to open source within the academic institution, and how that is sort of like a limitation for professors, students, and researchers, where like they have this like amazing contributions, but there's like not a way to measure that within the academia. So we were talking about like how can OSPO help like build on these incentives to help students and researchers with that. And Amber was came up with the idea of like maybe we can come up with like a set of metrics to measure like open source contributions, and that could be part of like more like the broader sort of like academic like even the hiring process, right? Like we're not hiring only based on the ATI index, but we're also taking into account other metrics that are like related to open source, because that's sort of like one of the limitations for like academics.
Yeah, there was one other point in the middle around kind of advocacy broadly and around building on Kristen's point this morning around sort of having a coherent message, that actually the work internally for the OSPO to get to a coherent message and telling that is sort of fits in as parts of all of those different points as well.
We're supposed to have a coherent message? God, you're such a perfectionist. Okay. All right, here we go.
So I think we had 4 points that people brought up. So one was now brought up at least 4 times of better, like advocating for incentives for faculty, et cetera, to get involved in open source research, having those contributions be part of promotion, tenure, that sort of thing. We also thought about that it would be helpful to have a way of matching students who were in the UC or just anywhere really, CSUs, etc., with available projects. Like if there are open source projects or like say academic tools where it doesn't make sense for the grad students to be doing nuts and bolts development stuff because they're not getting papers out of it, but there are students who want open source experience, then doing the matching between those. Also helping liaise with industry to set up funding arrangements for projects that have users in industry. That was 3. And then the point which was brought up earlier today about how it's apparently difficult administratively for the UC to actually use open source tools in its own operations, and it being difficult to actually like send money back to help encourage the further development of those things. So helping to make progress on that situation, basically. Were those all of them?
Thank you very much. And our final group.
We touched upon several different topics. So one thing that came mostly from our conversation is about the community building, that how can we develop a more vibrant group of contributors, how we can market the tools or the projects that we have, and there are how can we provide specific actionable suggestions for each of the projects that are under OSPOs. It's kind of like there are projects are different, each projects differ from one another. So it's kind of like if you come up with some general suggestions, that might not work. So there are many things that are involved in the process of onboarding, conflict resolution, setting the governance structure, and these things will be different from project to project, and how can we come up with something that will be project specific and tailored suggestions so that each project will be able, like whole community can be developed in an agile way, in a dynamic way. Yeah.
All right, so thank you very much to all of you. This was sort of like best case scenario, because I heard a lot of things that we are working on, which is like, yes, we're on the right path. And also a lot of things that we hadn't talked about before, which means that we get to be useful next year too. So that's awesome. So thank you very, very much for all of that feedback. That's really helpful. Okay, and so you've seen our website link a lot of times by now, and here it is again. And our Slack channel on the UC Tech Slack, the open source channel, that is so far where we are doing most of our announcing of events and posting links and all that kind of stuff. Also, in fact, I do have office hours where people can just drop in and ask open source related questions. I've had people say like, oh, I don't know if you would be the right person to ask whatever, and I might not be, but it might be the right first person to ask. And so kind of act like a reference librarian. And I'm trained for that in a sense, because I used to be a bookseller, and people would call us with questions that had nothing to do. They call me and like good enough books, how may I help you? And they're like, hi, I before E? And I'm like, I'm sorry? And they're like, I before E? It's like, oh, well, yeah, except after C and when sounding like A and neighbor and way. And we're like, oh, yeah, that's right, thank you, bye. Okay. So, even if the question isn't completely relevant, I might still be able to help you find the answer. So thank you very, very much for coming today, and thank you especially for sticking around all the way to the bitter end. Maybe we could have a round of applause for everybody who attended. And I remember just in time not to clap because it would hurt everybody's ears. All right, anything?
Is the URL supposed to be UC OSPO net, just so people can find you?
Does it not say UCOSPO.net?
OSPO.
Where?
On the virtual coffee.
Oh, yeah, UCOSPO.net/events.
I just want to make sure people can
Thank
find
you.
it.
Yes, yes. Or if you just go to the website and then click events, it's the same thing. So, all right, thank you very much. Anything else, Stephanie? Can we have another round of applause for Stephanie?